Welcome to Section 9, Lesson 2 of Hope. In the last lesson, we explored the importance of beliefs and how they really work from a biblical perspective. What we believe to be true at a deeper heart level, and not just what we profess to be true with our intellect, makes all the difference. Further, we explored the reality that we primarily come to believe things at a deeper level through relationships and experiences with God and others. In this lesson, we will continue to look more closely at what beliefs really are and how to identify the core beliefs that are most affecting your life, emotions, and relationships so that you can begin to change them for the better. So, what exactly are core beliefs? First, core beliefs are deep, abiding assumptions we make about ourselves, the world, relationships, God, and how things work. Our true beliefs are often deep and hidden, even to ourselves, and we need truth in our inner parts and God's Spirit to reveal it, and also often need others to help us see it and to know it. Second, core beliefs are things we hold to be true about God, life, relationships, emotions, ourselves, and more, at a deep and automatic level. In other words, beliefs are what we think is real and are convinced of in regard to how things really are or really work. Beliefs are things we think correspond to reality as it really is, even if it is not. Our core beliefs may not actually be true, but we have come to believe that they are, and anything we assume or believe to be true always plays out in our lives. Third, our core beliefs are different from what we profess. We don't always live what we profess, but we always live what we believe. Our actions and choices will betray us. As we have previously discussed, we know a tree by its fruit, and our symptoms and reactions are always telling us something about what we really believe or assume at a deeper level. Fourth, more than just what we think, core beliefs are feeling concepts embedded in past experiences, cultural influences, and past relationships. They often reflect the beliefs of others around us and the unspoken rules and messages of what we see, experience, watch, and listen to. Our beliefs are a combination of mental images, ideas, concepts, automatic thoughts, impressions, understandings, and assumptions that we are convinced of or have been that we emotionally bought into, even if we are not aware of them, and that lead us to certain conclusions. Fifth, our core beliefs are powerful because they always affect our attitudes, feelings, and actions. We make choices based on what we believe, and as it is said, all ideas have consequences. What we believe truly matters and will play out in how we see and treat ourselves, others, God, and our emotions and the choices we make. Finally, core beliefs can be different from what is actually true about God, life, relationships, emotions, ourselves, and more. Because we have come to believe many things on a deeper heart level that were the result of trauma that we experienced, or other experiences in relationships that may have produced powerful emotions, our feelings are deeply tied to our assumptions and ideas. However, many of those feelings and deep emotional assumptions about ourselves, God, or people in general are not actually true in reality or in light of God's Word. As you can see in this diagram, what we believe can overlap with what is true, but also may not be true. We can also have true beliefs that are not well grounded or thought out, leading us to be more easily confused or blown about by the wind, as the book of James describes. God is calling us to have a core knowledge and understanding of the truth and live by his truth in greater and greater ways as we mature in him so that we can stand firm on solid spiritual and emotional ground, having the mind of Christ. So if core beliefs are so important to our emotions, relationships, and lives, how can we know what our core beliefs are and how they are affecting us so we can start to do something about them? The first step we can take to identify our core beliefs is to examine our self-talk. We all talk to ourselves throughout the day, both in our heads and at times out loud. From the moment we wake up until we go to sleep at night, words, phrases, and conversations are running in our head. This self-talk includes common words and phrases in how we talk to ourselves or think about things. Self-talk represents the thoughts, words, and messages we give ourselves throughout the day, and if it is true that faith comes by hearing, and we hear it often enough in our heads, we will tend to believe it and live by it. Negative and false thinking can lead to feelings like anxiety, depression, and anger, and are typically connected to certain words we use in our self-talk that tell us something about what we believe underneath. Here are some key words to look for in examining your self-talk. Words like can't, never, always, shouldn't, should, if only, awful, terrible, have to, must, ought to. What do you think these words tend to have in common as you hear me say them? First, as you can see, all of these words are very absolute. In essence, when you use them, you are telling yourself something that you think is true. And truth, by definition, is exclusive, firm, and defines things. Either something is true or real, or it's not. So whatever we believe and tell ourselves is true is something we think is real, and therefore something we feel compelled to hold ourselves to. So when we have thoughts that include words like these, we are telling ourselves that something is true, something that seems like an imperative, an expectation, or even a command. However, the question is it really and actually true? If, as the scripture tells us, that truth sets us free, this is a very important question. The first step in identifying your core beliefs, then, is to begin to think about what you are thinking about and to identify and write down your thoughts and self-talk that is common to you throughout the day. Use this list of words above to identify things you say to yourself, to help yourself to begin to see the current of truth you are telling yourself and how often. For example, you may hear yourself telling yourself things like, I can't do this, or people should never talk to me that way, or it's terrible that the waitress said that, or etc. You can also ask yourself, when I think about these words, where, when, and how often do I tend to say them? Do I tend to dwell on the negative or positive? Why? What do I assume when I'm having these thoughts? Think of an example or ask a family member or friend as well to describe what they hear from you. I encourage you to keep a record of these thoughts in a notebook for a day or two to see what you discover about the way you talk to yourself or your attitude towards yourself, others, in the world as you consider the specific words you are using. Second, to begin to identify your core beliefs, you can also identify your mottos and philosophies. Mottos and philosophies are the common sayings and phrases we have learned from our families or culture that attempt to capture an idea or truth that is believed to be important or reflect a value we are expected to uphold. Common cultural mottos are phrases like, big boys don't cry, or love is love, or what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, never let them see you sweat, you do you, etc. In the media and consumer-driven culture of America, many mottos and shorthand philosophies are communicated to us frequently through bumper stickers, billboards, advertisements, or social media, and can also seep into our thinking and beliefs and expectations of ourselves and others. To identify the mottos and philosophies you tend to believe, spend some time thinking about and writing down the ones that pop into your head most often. What phrases do you tell yourself to motivate yourself? What do you say to yourself when something negative happens, or when there's a challenge or conflict to face? What do you say to yourself when a negative emotion arises? Also, what philosophies or ideas are you most drawn to, politically, for example? What TV shows, movies, or music do you most resonate with or watch? How do they reinforce or contribute to what you tend to believe and how you tend to talk to yourself each day? Identifying your mottos and philosophies is another important step for helping you examine them for the truth claims they represent, and whether they are actually true and helpful for you in relationships and your emotions. Third, you can begin to identify your core beliefs by examining your overreactions. We know we are overreacting when we become aware that our emotions or feelings are out of proportion to the event or circumstances we are in. For example, if I am driving in traffic and someone cuts me off, if my emotional reaction is one of rage and a desire to pull out a gun from my glove compartment and begin shooting, it's probably an overreaction. Emotional overreactions, whether to a common event like this or to other common and expected events in life, such as those that happen at work or home, are telling us something about the way we think and what we believe. In the example above, my rage and desire to take revenge or punish a driver I don't even know, who may have a variety of reasons for doing what he did, is likely telling me that I believe that what he did was wrong, unacceptable, and personal, and that he must be a jerk, have bad character or low moral standards, and that doing this kind of thing is unacceptable. Words and phrases we may say to ourselves or out loud in response to situations like this may include things like, "I can't believe he did that," or "What's wrong with you?" or "Really?" All of these phrases and emotions are telling us something about what we believe is true and what should or shouldn't be. Our overreactions and the words and phrases that we use when they happen are often telling us something about what we believe to be morally right or good or bad, and the judgments we are making on ourselves and others. When we overreact, it often represents black and white, extreme, and all or nothing absolutes we hold to, and that lead to the heightened emotions that go with putting things in these moral categories. Emotional extremes often represent rigid ideas, expectations, or demands that we have of ourselves, others, or life, and how it should work. So a way to identify your core beliefs is to think about the specific emotional overreactions you have had recently to yourself, a circumstance, event, or interaction with someone, and to reflect on it. Write down what you felt, what you said to yourself or the other person or people in the situation, what moral assumptions or expectations you had towards yourself or others, and why it felt so important or extreme. Reflecting on these events will help you become more aware of your underlying core beliefs. Finally, you can increase your ability to understand your core beliefs by examining your symptoms. As we have explored in previous lessons, the emotional and behavioral symptoms of your life are like the fruit of your tree. The fruit is telling you something about the health of your tree. As you consider the emotional and behavioral fruit of your tree, try to trace it back and make connections to what is happening in your tree in terms of how you see and experience the world, based on both what you were taught and what you caught from your trauma or past experiences, as well as your reaction to it. What messages were you sent in the past? What have you come to believe as a result of these experiences? When you are experiencing emotional symptoms, behaviors, or troubling desires or motives now, what are the thoughts, expectations, and assumptions behind them? Using your symptoms as an opportunity to trace back their connections to your thoughts, ideas, attitudes, and beliefs is an important step to dismantling the things that produce the negative fruit. Before moving on to the next lesson, I encourage you to take some time to use your note-taking guide to fill in your answers to the questions that have been asked throughout this lesson to help you more specifically identify your core beliefs that are most impacting your life and emotions. In the next lesson, you will learn more about how core trauma beliefs keep you stuck. I'll see you in the next lesson.